Hi, welcome back. My name's Devraj, back with the Liber, Book of the Law today. And just a quick one to look at some lines here, quite interesting crossover in chapter one between esoteric Christian mythology, the Liberal itself, of course, and alchemy, basically, in terms of spiritual alchemy, which is the idea that we can affect changes in the human body and its capacities through various kind of mystical spiritual processes that we can invoke. Let's have a look at the text. So this is towards the end of chapter one. It's not a super long book at all, Liber and it has these three chapters. And as I mentioned in the earlier video on Liber a few days ago, it's a lot about global transformation. Basically, it's about the end of a 2,000-year period of Pisces and the coming of a new Aeon and the kind of it's like a reset, and then it's invoking also a quite brutal form of Horus, the Egyptian god, who is going to, if necessary, wield quite a lot of force to induce change. This is the voice of Nuit, and she's been, kind of talking about the incredible ecstasies of a kind of transcendental existence. And this is also interjected by the kind of the narrator of the text, who is channeling it to Crowley. Notice I got his name pronunciation right this time. Some people wrote to me to protest when I called him Crowley before. Fair enough. Change not as much as the style of a letter, for behold, thou, O prophet, shalt not behold all these mysteries hidden therein. So it's kind of saying to the to Crowley, in fact, who is basically the channeler, that he's not going to behold all the mysteries, but the child of thy bowels, he shall behold them. So, this became understood as like another person is going to come along, possibly the child of Crowley, and he's going to be like this kind of prophet of the new Aeon. But let's look a little bit further and see if that's really what this text is talking about. Expect him not from the east, nor from the west, for from no expected house cometh that child, Om. So that's super interesting. Anyone who's studied alchemy would probably notice quite a blatant alchemical reference there. I don't think Crowley noticed it in the commentaries that he did, but not from the east, not from the west. So it's talking about directions, for from no expected house. So house could be an astrological house. For example, the 12 signs of the zodiac each represent an astrological house. From no expected house cometh that child. So of all the 12 astrological houses, from which one would you really not expect a child to come? And I think the answer to that is fairly obvious, Virgo. So what the text is really saying, because also Virgo, like all the other astrological signs, it rules a part of the body, and in this case it rules the bowels, stomach and the bowels. So the child of thy bowels, he shall behold them. So it's saying that this kind of forthcoming prophet of the new Aeon shall come from this house of Virgo. Now, what might this mean? Well, basically, Virgo, as I said, rules the bowels. Another word for this area of the body is the house of bread, which in Hebrew and also Arabic is translated Bethlehem or Bethlehem, basically. So that indicates a pretty major crossover with esoteric Christianity. The idea that the Savior will be born in Bethlehem of a virgin. And regardless of the kind of, a traditional, mundane, exoteric interpretation of that concept, on an esoteric level, it's about alchemy. What it's saying is that certain changes that can happen in your bowels will create a regenerated consciousness. Even in Masonic law, they have this idea: the stone the builder rejected becomes the coping stone. So the builders of the body, it's sitting in the bowels through the processes by which food is broken down. Some of it is passed out, and some of it comes back into the body as nutrition and all this kind of thing. And in this spiritual version of alchemy, that's to say not the the thing about transmuting metals into lead into gold, but the spiritual version. Essentially, what happens are like subtle changes in the chemistry of the bowel. This is what's believed in by some schools of alchemy. And what they cause to happen is that the sunlight that's present in food, particularly in food that grows above the ground, like vegetables and stuff like that, instead of it being passed out of the body, if there are changes in the chemistry of the gut, that light can pass into the bloodstream. And there it circulates in the body and creates kind of changes in your thinking, actually in the structure of your brain, the structure of your pineal gland. So this is like a very old idea from alchemy from the Middle Ages, probably earlier. The idea that sunlight, it's coming through our body in the form of the food that we eat. It's got a certain amount of sunlight in it, but that's passing out of the body. But if you can make some changes in your bowel system, and we'll look a little bit more at alchemy and some of these ideas later on, then the sunlight doesn't all pass out. Some of it comes into your bloodstream, creates changes. And when you look at words like enlightenment or Illuminati, there are these constant references to light, to sunlight. And if you were to look at a famous old esoteric manuscript called the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, or really it's just a series of sentences that have passed down to us, this is the version from Builders of the Adytum. They're all pretty much the same. It's a lot of this is that which is above is that which is below, and performing the miracles of the one thing, blah, 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 blah. And if you look towards the end here, therefore I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the three parts of philosophy of the whole world. What I have to tell is completed concerning the operation of the sun. So the sun is pouring this light into food, and it's passing through our body, but with some changes, the sunlight can be absorbed by the body. And then we become enlightened and illuminated. So back at the Liber Al, this process unravels this mystery a little bit. For a long time, since the publication of Liber Al, and when it became popular, I think in the 1930s, a lot of people kind of proposed themselves as the child of the new Aeon, that they were the prophet predicted by the book, and they would understand this text and be able to explain it. But what this text is actually saying, in my opinion, it's more a reference to alchemy, and it's more a reference to a transformational inner process. Right now, Crowley, in his current form, cannot behold all the mysteries hidden therein. But if he went through this alchemical journey, then he would be able to. And so would anybody else. That's the kind of concept here. So this kind of sheds new light and gives a new direction to Liber Al as but we can understand it more as a inner transformation that's going to happen both on a personal level and on a global level. Okay, I hope this has been a useful video for you to watch, and you've got some interesting thoughts and information from it. And I look forward to seeing you again soon with some more esoteric stuff here on this channel, Mysticism and the Body. Thank you.